right. Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? You have to let us know if we're live, guys. If you're watching, let us know if we are live and you guys can hear us and you guys can see us. Give a thumbs up if you guys can hear us. And let us know where you're watching from. If you can hear us, let us know by giving us a thumbs up, and also let us know where you're watching from. Today we got a really impactful topic today. One of the things that's impacting Sierra Leone and people abroad, because as we know, people are trying to communicate with people in Sierra Leone, and you can't communicate if there's no light. So we'll give it a chance for people to get on.
Right. I see
right,
some
so,
thumbs up.
Okay, you see some thumbs up? Great. So welcome everybody to Exposing Sierra Leone, where Authentic African CEO, myself, Joe Hatagwa, and Sierra Leoneans Killing It founder, Admire Dimoh, we shed light on, today we're going to shed light on the recent power outage in Sierra Leone. Despite attempts by the EDSA to downplay the severity of the situation, insider sources revealed stark reality behind the scenes. With a drastic reduction in supply from the Karpowership attributed to the government's failure to settle outstanding invoices, citizens were left grappling with the consequences of prolonged blackouts. Businesses and households were struggling and are struggling, facing issues from spoiled food. I can tell you my own personal experience with that. And disruptions in daily life. The lack of transparency and accountability by EDSA and the government has only deepened public mistrust. So today, Admire and I are going to discuss the impact of the blackout and try to advocate for greater accountability addressing the crisis. Now, before we get into this, I think maybe it's a good idea to do some quick introductions so you guys know who we are and what we are about. And so I'm going to share my screen, take a look at some slides. But I'll go ahead and introduce myself first before I turn it over to Admire to introduce herself. So my name is Joe Hatagwa. I am an American-born Sierra Leonean. I'm the founder of Authentic African. My goal with that platform is to connect diasporans and Africans living on the continent of Africa. And it is a Pan-African platform focused on Pan-African news, history, culture, and politics. And the goal is to keep you guys abreast of what's going on and make sure that we understand what's happening in either side so that we can all better progress as a continent and as a people living in the diaspora. So that's a little bit about me. I'll turn it over to Admire to do her introduction for those of you who aren't as familiar with her.
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for joining us. Please be sure to share this live with your friends, family, especially Sierra Leoneans. They should definitely be in the know of what's going on. My name is Admire. I am a licensed braider located in Houston, Texas, and I'm also an entrepreneur. I am the founder of Sierra Leoneans Killing It page. And on that page, I basically post Sierra Leoneans who are positively killing it in our community. So if you've never been posted before and you would like to be posted, just follow the instructions, DM all your information, and I'll be more than happy to highlight you. That's it.
And that is Admire. Blackouts for weeks. So this is a conversation we're going to have today, and I think I'll start a little bit with my experience, so you guys can understand how it impacts people firsthand. And I myself am fortunate to have a couple things working in my favor. Number one, I have a generator at my house. Number two, I have options. Like, for example, going live today, I'm going live from Pearl Hotel, thanks to the folks at Pearl Hotel. Mars in particular, to allow me to go live from here. This is an exceptional hotel. If you haven't stayed here, it's really nice, actually. And this is like a place that I would stay before ever they allowed me to even do lives here. But I have options. Many people don't have options. So I had to go. So two main ways that this impacted me. Number one, I had to go to Bo over the weekend. And when I'm making my food, I prep for days ahead, right? And so I knew that I was about to travel upline. So I got one of those Coolman, got some
Mm-hmm.
ice packets, put it in there, and put my juices in there. But that was only had enough to put my juices in there. So my food for the week, I left in the freezer and put other ice packets in there, and then closed the freezer. Didn't open it again because I only had 24 hours. Unfortunately, I came back. The food was no longer good because not only did the ice melt, but it was really, really hot inside the house. So it didn't actually keep the food cool longer than probably a day. I was told previously that it can keep food cold up to 48 hours or longer. Not in every case. And so my food went bad. Not only did my food go bad, but the stuff that I brought with me, once I got to Bo, I actually had food that I wanted to put in the freezer, but we couldn't run the freezer unless we ran the big generator. And to run the big generator, you need to spend about $100 or so to let it run for 24 hours straight, between $50 and
Oh wow.
$100 to make, because like it's a big generator and it powers a lot. But it was going to be at
Mm-hmm.
least 50. It was going to be at least $50 because it's about $30 to run my current generator for about 24 hours to a little over 24 hours, and it's a little smaller one. This is like a giant one, and so I opted out of that. I opted to try to put a lot of ice in the freezer. That all melted, and my juices went bad. So I know that sounds like a first world problem, right? Your juice goes bad, your food goes bad, but I paid for this food to be cooked. And then now I didn't have food for the next couple of days. So now I have to go eat food out. Like I'm going to have to eat here at the hotel for dinner tomorrow, or for lunch tomorrow. I'm going to have to eat out again, or have to buy food again. And so it's just minor inconveniences for me. But think about the people who have to refill your generator. You know, it cost me $30 to put fuel in my generator, and that only lasts for 48 hours. And my generator can't run for longer than 6 hours at a time, or the oil gets bad and I have to top up the oil as well. And so we're talking about $60 to $90 cost every week and a half for a $300 generator that I'm running, that's not running on AC. The only thing that's plugged into it is like a refrigerator, and like a medium-sized refrigerator, and that's costing me $60 to $90 a week, or every week and a half. So imagine what that must be like for the local Sierra Leonean whose income is $50 a month. $50
That's
a month is the
crazy.
average income here, right? All right, I'm spending almost $90 a week to keep my generator running. So think about hospitals, think about schools, think about people who work at night. And so this is the impact can be really, really hard on people. So I wanted to give my personal story before I went into kind of how it impacts the broader life in Sierra Leone. But before I do, Admire, did you have any thoughts on what I just said,
That's
or how it impacted
that's
me?
crazy. That's really crazy. If that happens to you, it's like just 10 times worse for especially being that it's $50 a month. Like it's just very backwards.
Yeah, I have construction going on at my house, and not only are all the guys doing the construction using my house and the day that they're working to charge their devices, because their devices are all dead.
Hmm.
My next door neighbor, who luckily has been supplying me with some water, he's been coming. I also bought a pump to pump water from the main Guma line, and that requires electricity. And of course, there was no electricity, so it doesn't pump any water. And it's just like it's just compounding effects. So anyway,
Yeah.
I want to get into how it's been impacting people on a broader scale. Royal Bloodline says good afternoon, and so does said glad to catch the live. Shout out to Royal Bloodline. Um, so let me go into the story, and then we can talk about this a little bit more, because I did just speak about a personal experience, but I think it's
Right.
important to hear more from people, or how it impacts the broader public. Because yeah, me, okay, fine. You can say like first world problems, somebody who's used to growing up in America, I can complain. But like this has real world impact. So This is an article from Sierra Loaded, and here's what they said. So the impact of the constant power outages. Sierra Leone, like any other nation striving for development, relies heavily on the stable and reliable power supply. Unfortunately, EDSA's track record of consistent power outages has become a significant obstacle in the path of progress. Number one, it stifles economic growth. Industries are the engines of economic growth, and they depend on continuous power supply to operate efficiently. EDSA's inability to provide this stability has stunned industrial progress, resulting in economic setbacks for the nation. Foreign investment remains wary, and local businesses struggle to thrive amidst the uncertainty of frequent blackouts. Second is impeding education and innovation. So in a world driven by technology, meaning the world outside of here, or even here, access to electricity is vital for educational institutions. The constant interruption in power supply disrupts learning, hindering the potential of the nation's youth. Additionally, research and innovation suffer as laboratories and educational facilities grapple with challenges posed by unreliable electricity. Number three is compromising healthcare services. The healthcare sector is a cornerstone of social well-being, relies heavily on electricity for life-saving equipment, refrigeration, and overall operational efficiency. EDSA's consistent power outages compromise healthcare services, putting lives at risk and hindering the nation's ability to provide adequate medical care. Number five is hampering communication and connectivity. You and I, Admire, just talked about someone who had a hard time being able to join these lives to talk about his experience living here because there's always power outages or his internet doesn't work. A nation's connectivity to global community is dependent on reliable communication infrastructure, which in turn relies on stable power supply. EDSA's failures in this regard isolate Sierra Leone, hindering its integration into the global landscape and limiting opportunities for progress. So you know how you have all these remote jobs. I have friends here who always ask me about, I hear about these remote jobs. I see these Instagram pages talking about remote jobs. And the number one thing that they require is a powerful internet connection and constant electricity. And these are two things that are hampered by the internet, so the power issues. And so it's hard to even have skilled workers to be able to get remote jobs outside of the country to generate some income here because of these things. Number six is dampening quality of life. At a fundamental level, constant power outages affect the daily lives of citizens. From households struggling with the basic comforts of lighting to businesses grappling with operational challenges, the lack of stable power supply casts a shadow on overall quality of life for people in Sierra Leone. So there's an urgent need to change. And as Sierra Leone stands at the crossroads of development, the dark reality of EDSA's contributions to the underdevelopment cannot be ignored. It is imperative that the power sector undergoes significant reforms, infrastructure upgrades, and policy adjustments to meet the growing demands of the population. The nation stands to lose more with each passing day of unreliable electricity. So there's a lot there. I know I read through that very quickly, but I felt like it was important to kind of give you guys that background. So what are your thoughts on that before I add additional thoughts myself and Maya? I'd love to hear what you think.
I'm just like, I feel so bad for the folks back home because it's just like,
yeah,
it's tough. It's tough for them. I don't even know what to say. That'll like, frustration.
Yeah, I mean,
just ugh.
Yeah, I mean, you heard educational institutions, hospitals, businesses, right? Every sector of business is negatively impacted by this, right? On a level that you don't really think about when you're living your everyday lives if you're in the global north or the west, whatever you want to call it. So if you're back in the States or in Europe, you know, you have power all the time. You don't even think about these things. But just, you know, for me, I mean, the amount of money that I've been spending on this generator, it's ridiculous. And this was over the last like 3 weeks. You know, I spent a little over, you know, $250, a little more than $250, about close to $300 on just fueling and putting new oil in my generator
Mm-hmm.
and because there was no light, right?
Right.
You should not be spending that much money on having power at home, right?
Right.
That's just crazy. And so Aisha says, "Wow, that's expensive." Royal Bloodline says, "Wow, sorry to hear that." Yeah, I mean, it is the reality of everyday life here. Now we're gonna get to why it happened, what they're trying to do to fix it, and some of the press releases that came out. But the reason why we're doing this topic is because one, it's topical. It happened just now, and two, if you remember a couple weeks ago when we went live, there was someone saying that once the electricity is more stable in Sierra Leone, he was planning to move here. I don't know if you remember that, Admire, but that guy was saying, I can't
I
remember his
did.
name, and
Yeah, he
so
did say
and I
that.
he did say that, right? And I said, listen, if you're going to wait for the electricity to be perfect, then, good luck. It's going to be years. So you're going to have to just find ways to get around it and to deal with it. I mean, that's just the reality of being on the ground here. If you're living in Sierra Leone, you're going to be dealing with the power challenges. That's just what it is here. And so, so I wanted to mention that before we went on because I think it's really, really important. So a couple of things that we can do if you're in the country to try to stay informed. Number one, I use Sierra Loaded. There are going to be typos. There are going to be some challenges with the website because they have so many ads in there. But they have up-to-date information on all the breaking news in Sierra Leone, whether it's on Instagram, their Facebook page, or you're in their WhatsApp group. They're really good. Also, EDSA's Facebook page, they do post their press releases on their Facebook page. So if you want to have an update on what's going on in terms of what they've put out publicly, then at least you can check that out on their Facebook page. I like to give that insight and that information because that is where I get my information, and that's how I stay up to date on what's happening. Because imagine, like, you go 8 hours without light. Okay, maybe it's the transformer at my junction, which we talked about before. But then you go
Mm-hmm.
24 hours without light, and you're like, there's obviously a broader issue. And
Right.
so let's get to some of the recent press releases. So on the 21st of March, we got this press release that said, the Electricity Distribution and Supply Authority, EDSA, would like to inform the general public that as part of an additional financing under the World Bank, it has completed the procurement of a 33 kV conductors that will be replacing the existing conductors, basically saying they were going to be doing work. Now, they said during this time, power would be out from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. daily. And so I was expecting 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. daily, power would be out. And then one day, 3 p.m. came, no light. 8 p.m. came, no light. 8 a.m. the next day came, no
Oh
light.
Lord.
And then they're like, all right, so obviously it's something bigger. And over time, we found out there were some other things involved that had to do with why we had no light. But let's go back a little bit, because this is something that we've been seeing over and over again for a long period of time. But there have been some public notices going back to December of last year. And if you guys might remember, when I first moved to Sierra Leone in April of last year, one of the things I did is I came on live and I talked about the power grid in Sierra Leone and how it wasn't made to be able to power all of the country with the number of people that are in the country today and the number of devices connected to the grid, right? It just was not, it wasn't made for that. So we talked about that a bit. And then we talked about Karpowership, which is a Turkish company that has a boat off the coast of Sierra Leone that supplies power to Sierra Leone, and how there was an unpaid bill of $44 million. Yes, dollars, USD dollars, not 44 million leones, not 44,000 leones, 44 million US dollars. Now,
That's a lot.
a lot. Now, I will say this. The reasoning for this does somewhat make sense. A couple different things. Number one, the debt was already in place under the previous administration. Apparently, there was 20-something million in debt under the previous administration. New administration inherited that blew up to $44 million. Now, one of the things that a government administrative or government official had mentioned last year was this: they paid the Turkish Karpowership in dollars, which is why the debt is spoken about in dollars, right? $44 million. But they collect EDSA payments from the people of Sierra Leone in leones. And the price in leones is, rate adjusted for the semi-rate adjusted for the income in Sierra Leone. So if you want 32 units of power, you pay about 200 leones for that period of time. 32 units can last you about 2 weeks, a week. So 200 leones, if I do the math real quick, that's about $10, a little less than $10 for 200 leones. So you pay $10, you can get power for about a week, right? But remember, people generate about $50 in revenue a month. So if they're paying $10 a week for power, then obviously it's going to be more than what their monthly income is to be able to supply power to their house regularly at that price, depending on how many devices they have, etc. So these are just things that go into account when you're thinking about like what it means to not have power. So I want to read this press release and then I'll get your thoughts, because this was pre-Christmas and then on Christmas Day for those of you who celebrate Christmas. So on the 23rd, EDSA put out a general public notice saying that there was an attack, basically. Even though, so the Electric Supply Authority wishes to inform the general public that in the early hours of Saturday, 23rd of December 2023, the Freetown 121 substation at Kingdom, which serves as the primary hub for power evacuation to the western area, was attacked by unknown persons. So on the 25th, they basically said they had an update. The attack on its infrastructure basically had destruction for longer than expected. So there's always some issue happening, right? So this was an attack on the particular power station. There was also theft one time of cords that supply power. There's always something, right? So these press releases kind of give you that insight and that information. And then you have, different people giving statements about what's happening. So Julius Harding, who is the EDSA Director General, he addressed the electricity crisis. He said during weekly press conference on March 26th, his name is Joe Lai Sormana, the Director General of EDSA, shed light on the dire financial situation facing the utility company. He candidly disclosed that they're grappling with sufficient losses due to the unstable pricing model in place. He underscored that the predicament, stating, "We buy power, but we charge our customers less than what we spend to buy power from Karpowership and other sources. So even before we start business, we are already running at a loss." The admission from the Director General highlights the deep-rooted financial challenges plaguing EDSA, where the cost of purchasing electricity exceeds the revenue generated from customers. This revelation has sparked concerns among citizens and stakeholders alike, prompting calls for urgent reforms within the electricity sector. So he basically said, we cannot provide what we don't have. So he further emphasized the limitation imposed by the financial constraints. Full delivery of the 120 megawatt Freetown requires is beyond our current network capacity. So that basically explains 9 out of 10 citizens with access to electricity are either involved in theft themselves or know someone who is, he claimed. This widespread practice significantly contributes to EDSA's financial woes. We are essentially contributing to our own downfall. So what he's saying is that there are people stealing power from other people, right? So there are people who are connecting to someone else's grid or somehow, some way being able to pull power from the grid, and they don't have a sufficient system for tracking that down and stopping it, or they don't have a sufficient system for enforcing the stopping of it, because there are many people who are benefiting from it. And so when you think about it, right,
Mhm.
That's one reason. But I mean, what to me, it's just like, okay, I get that you charge in leones and you pay back in dollars. So there does need to be some kind of reform, right? I mean, obviously, what's happening today is not working.
It's
The
not, and it
cost of the
doesn't make sense
electricity is
to
too
me
expensive.
personally.
Yeah, but what's the solution, right? It's like, this has
Right.
already been in place. This is how it goes. And I think the main solution is revamping the grid, as they said they were doing. But as we've talked about before, I think it's going to take a nuclear power solution, whether that's in Burkina Faso, which we know that they're
Mhm.
working on with Russia right now, or maybe if Nigeria revamps its power supply and is able to export some of that power here. But until that changes, the problems we have will continue to persist. We're just getting
Right.
more and more populated. People are using more and more devices, and you're just going to continue to have these power outages. So we can't expect that it's going to go away anytime soon.
That's crazy. Very.
So the president, yeah, right. I mean, like, just knowing that we're doomed to this outcome is
Right.
scary. Because of course, when people say we did bien, that makes salon de bien, and I understand why people complain that way and say we're behind and we have a lot of work to do. Part of why we're behind is some basic infrastructure challenges. So the president addressed the nation, and in response to Freetown's recent power outage crisis, President Bio convened a crucial meeting at the State House with a high-power delegation of key stakeholders from the energy sector. According to his aide, um, the meeting aims to devise prompt solutions to alleviate the capital's energy woes, which have left residents in darkness for almost a week. The urgency of the situation has been exacerbated by the partial suspension of operations by Karpowership, the primary electricity supplier to Freetown. The suspension comes as a result of unpaid debts totaling 27 million US dollars owed by the government
Wow.
of Sierra Leone, leading to financial strain on the energy's provider. So $27 million
That's a
we
lot.
owe. So it went from 44 to 27. So we're moving in the right direction, but it's still a lot, as you just said.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that? We owe $27 million. I'd love to hear your response to that.
Child. The people in power got to make better decisions. That's my personal
Okay,
um my
fair.
personal thought. Because these decisions, I don't know, it's like it's not bringing more profit, it's bringing more loss. It's like setback after setback after setback. So I don't even, at this point, like, maybe they should try something else. Maybe try something else, because it's not working. It
Absolutely.
hasn't been working for years. So,
Exactly. And I think the sentiment from Royal Bloodline is very similar. I mean, they do need to try something else. I agree. To me, I think the only thing is going to be nuclear power. But in the meantime, everyone planning to move, planning to visit, just know these are things you're going to have to account for.
brace
So yeah,
yourself,
we should
huh?
have this. Brace yourself. Until they come. You said you were coming, right?
Mm-hmm. Gotta brace myself.
Got to be prepared. I mean, this is what it's going to be like. And this is, and look, as we've talked about before, Sierra Leoneans killing it is about, showing what's happening in Sierra Leone in the diaspora, and really like big on highlighting people killing it in a positive way. And Authentic
Right.
African, the platform has always been about trying to bring these two, the diaspora and Africa together. And I think when we came together as a collective, we wanted to cover topics that we know are not being addressed elsewhere or don't give proper context and understanding to what's happening. So we've decided that that's what we're going to do with some of these topics. Sometimes it'll be topical. Sometimes it'll be things that are happening that have always happened in the community, and we want to
Right.
talk about them. Things that are uncomfortable to talk about, but we want to make sure that we're bringing this kind of information to you people, because you guys are asking for it, right? There's been calls for people to talk about this stuff, and we want to ensure that we're doing so.
That's true. Yep.
Yes. So on the 16th, there was another press release, because there'd be press releases on press releases. And this particular press release said, EDSA wishes to inform the general public that due to a number of concurrent unfortunate challenges along with the energy supply chain, Karpowership, the authority is currently challenged in providing adequate electricity to Freetown network. EDSA would like its customers to know that its unfortunate situation has resulted in a reduced power supply, meaning no power supply, to Freetown at least, and distribution to residents of Freetown until the problem is completely resolved. The authority and other key stakeholders are using all resources within their reach to resolve this issue. Once addressed, more power will be available for supply and distribution to the valued customers of Freetown. We therefore apologize to residents of Freetown for this inconvenience this situation has caused and promise to resolve the problem soon. Now, this came out maybe 2 days or so after the blackout had already been going on for 48 hours or so. And then power did not come to much later. But let me talk about what I showed here on the screen really quickly. So the United States International Development Finance Corporation, DFC, board had announced an increase in debt financing, meaning another loan, to support the development, construction, and operation of approximately 105 megawatts of thermal plants in Sierra Leone, initially approved in 2021 for the amount of up to 217 million. The finance has now been augmented to 292 million. So I would hope that of that 292, 27 million will go to Karpowership.
Right, because that's a lot of money. Like, where's this money going? To be honest,
Great question.
It's a lot of money.
$292 million for infrastructure. And it was 217. It got augmented to 292. So you can take 27 of it, give it to Karpowership, and get us out of this debt, right?
Right.
And so we did hear last Friday that Karpowership was going to turn back on power, or last Saturday, and they did. So they did turn back on power last week, and that was amazing, or last Saturday, which was just 2 days ago. And so we now have basic we now have basic power that is enough to supply for the amount of time that it has been, right? For a few hours at a time, goes off for a few hours, come back for more hours, and it's off for a few hours. So it's at least back to its regularly unscheduled programming. So kind of what we're used to, but it's definitely not a better power situation than right before Karpowership turned it off. It's about the same, but at least it's back for extended periods of time. I'm hoping that by the time I get back home, I will have light back home. So fingers crossed. So yeah, I mean, I wanted to give this update. We wanted to talk about this because obviously, those of you who are planning to come in December, those of you who come in April around, Sierra Leone's Independence Day, you got to know what's happening. And this, obviously it has ramifications across all areas of life in this country. So yeah, I mean, that was the impotence for this live and why we wanted to talk about it. Do you have any final thoughts on this? I know I asked you along the way if you had any questions or any thoughts about it, but do you have any final thoughts on what we're talking about here and what we experienced with this power outages?
I mean, honestly, I just feel like maybe try something else because it's not working. And it seems like it's a lot of money. It's like keep getting loans but there's like no solution. So maybe the government should come up with a new solution because this isn't working. So it's just like, it doesn't make sense logically.
Yeah. See, I'm not an electrical engineer, so I don't know anything about power grids. But it seems to me, I think we need to do a whole new power grid. I don't even know if you can revamp the existing one. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how that works. I don't know how poor that is, but or how poorly it can be executed. But one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that we've talked about previously is that every neighborhood has a um, transformer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And many neighborhoods, transformers go down because of the surges in power and their inability to be able to service that area. So I think that we're gonna have to change out all of those and put brand new ones that, like, I think what we should do is
Mm-hmm.
operate at a capacity of 20 million so that we as a society can grow into that capacity, right? So we should get to the place where we can power 20 million households and continue to stay ahead of that, right? That would be the ideal scenario. You got $290 million for infrastructure. I don't know how much of that is supposed to go into electricity, but I think if we could get to a place where we could support powering 20 million people while we only have 8 million people, I think that would ensure that power outages do not continue to be so frequent. And then we don't have to rely on a Turkish company with a boat off the coast of the water to make sure we have light. That's what I think.
Mm.
I
That's
think that
also a
that
good idea.
yeah, I think that that's the solution. You got plenty of money. So I'm interested to see what they announce in terms of what they're going to do with this funding. I know the Minister of Information and Civic Engagement does a good job of putting out releases and things of that nature. So I'm interested to see what he says following this. But one of the things that I think was interesting is this is the second time Karpowership has turned off the power to Sierra Leone. So obviously, you know, it would behoove us to pay the full debt down and or move completely off the you know, the need for them to supply power to the country, right? If we do that, then we're in a place where we're not beholden to someone else, and we can, you know, we can determine our own destiny. It
Right.
should not be the norm for us that like light's just gonna go out all the time. I mean, you're at a party and you're enjoying yourself, power goes out. You know,
Right.
like, you know, you're at a bar or something and you're watching the game and you're all excited for your team, Arsenal, whatever, because people watch soccer here or football, international football, and zoom, power goes out. You know, you're in your house in the middle of the night, you got your fans on because it's too hot, and boom, power goes out. Last night, I woke up 4 times in the middle of the night. Power was off, then it was on, then it was off. Because when in the middle of the night, I turn off my generator, and my generator sleeps when I sleep. Right, my generator is up when I'm up.
Mm-hmm.
And last night, I woke up 4 times because the light would. I fell asleep, and the light went on, and then off, and then the light would come on, and then off, and it would happen like over a period of like maybe 10 minutes. It'd be off, and then it'd be on again, and then it'd be off for a long time, and then it'd
Mm-hmm.
be on, and then off, and then for a long time, and then on, and then off, and it just kept happening like that 4 times last night. So I really do hope that this does get taken care of, because this
Me
is
too, because that's a
no
lot.
way to live.
That's yeah, it's not uncomfortable, frustrating,
Hmm.
just mm-mm. I hope there is change.
Absolutely. So Yvette Francesca says these kinds of things put me in a real dilemma whether to move there or to live or not. I mean, look, as I said, you just have to have contingency plans. You know, living in Sierra Leone, you have to have backup plans, and you need to be able to be creative and think on the fly. I used to watch MacGyver all the time. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm aging myself a little bit. I will be 40 in about 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. But there was a show on TV in the 90s called MacGyver. And I don't know, he was like a special ops guy. He would always find himself in these crazy situations, and he'd use like a toothpick to be able to get out of a maximum security prison kind of thing. Like he was the kind of guy that could like use anything. So I referenced MacGyver. So like I had a water issue. I didn't have water in my tanks for my construction guys, but I had water in the house that went into the house. So I took one of these giant water bottles. I put the hose through here. I cut this part off, found like a metal like thing that can hang it, and I hung it on the shower and had the water coming through it so I could feed water out to the construction workers on site doing construction work. Like that's the way you have to be. Like you have to be that kind of ingenuity. You got to have that kind of um, you know ability to like move on the fly and think on the fly to be able to
Mhm.
survive in a country like this. This is the only way you can do
Wow.
it. Auntie Alice is here. Shout out to Auntie Alice Davies. She says it's so sad because electricity is supposed to be so basic. It sure is. Royal Bloodline says I'll be moving to Cameroon next year, so I'm expecting to be going through the same thing. I mean, many African countries go through this challenge. It is a challenge on the continent. We don't have nuclear power, as far as I know, on the continent, and until you do, it's really going to be hard to electrify this many households in a continent that's growing at this pace. It's going to
What
be
if
really really difficult.
isn't isn't Kenya like really on top of it with tech and stuff?
Kenya is, yes, they
Why
are.
can't why can't other African countries like collab with them or work with them or like what's happening there?
Yeah, I don't know if that power if they can generate power to travel this far. I
Oh
think
yeah,
that kind of
because
power is kind of regional. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So it
Kenya
have to
is
be a
far.
yeah. It's like, and for those of you who don't know, it between Sierra Leone and Kenya is like the difference between going from one side of Russia to the other side of Russia, and then add another couple of countries. It's that far away from each other.
Mm.
You know how big Russia looks on the map. Even though Africa
Hmm.
looks this big on the map and Russia looks this big, Russia
Yeah,
actually fits into that part of Africa. So I think that's the hardest part. Is it would have to be regionalized, and that's why I'm saying if Burkina Faso does do this nuclear power plant, maybe they'd be able to power all the way to Sierra Leone. I'd hope so. Or if Nigeria does one, I hope so. So
yeah,
we'll see. But I mean, those are all years out, right? Until then, brace yourself if you're traveling to Salon.
right.
Um,
Andrew said they can still collaborate on initiatives and insights.
that's true. That's true. They could, and I think maybe you can't go back and fix what was done incorrectly in the first place, or you can't go back and change what was done incorrectly in the first place. You could try to fix it. So maybe they can learn from them and see how they can apply what they've done in Kenya to
Right.
um, to Sierra Leone. But don't get us wrong, though. Kenya does have blackouts. Not nearly as many as we do. South Africa does as well. Many other countries do load shedding, where they'll tell you when they're doing. I think South Africa does load shedding, and they let you know when they are going to cut the power off to a certain area, and then you're
Hmm.
prepared for it. But we all have blackouts on the continent, as far as I understand. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what my experience in Egypt was like. I didn't really see too many blackouts in Egypt, but many countries, I should say, on the continent have power outages. I have a couple more comments, and then if you have more comments, you could definitely jump into them. Auntie Alice says, "Happy birthday, old man." I know I'm getting old, old pa, turning 40 in a little over a week. Crazy. Layla says, "I think Sierra Leone is worse than many other countries. It's up there." Morocco is in Africa and doesn't have any blackouts. There you go. Layla says Morocco doesn't have any blackouts. There you go. Any other comments from your end that you're seeing that I'm missing?
Let me see. 49 countries in Africa do not have stable electricity. That's from Andrews.
Okay, so that's
Um,
49 out of 54, to be clear. So 54 countries and 49 of them don't have stable power or electricity. So
Leo
that's good
Soul
insight.
Leo Soul said buying a generator or solar generator is a must.
Yes.
And let me see. And Mama Salon said, "Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Joe, for sharing."
Of
um,
course. Of course.
Andrews also said all that money does not go to the government. And then he said only 5 countries in Africa have stable. are stable or have stable electricity. I don't know what he was trying to say there.
That almost aligns with what the other previous statement was saying that, yeah, so around about, yeah, makes sense. Any other comments that we want to address?
That's it. Thank you guys, by the way, for commenting. Thank you
Yes.
for engaging with us. We appreciate it. International Prezzo Kelly just commented and said many thanks to you guys. What is happening in our beloved nation is shameful and absolutely unacceptable.
Mm. So Layla is speaking more to Morocco not having blackouts for more than 30 years. Marie Shai says, this makes me sad. I'm supposed to move to Salon at the end of the year, but my plan is to get solar panels. Yes, just make sure you budget for it, because solar, depending on where you buy it, if you buy it locally, depending on who you buy from, that's going to cost you at least $1,000, maybe $2,000, depending, maybe $3,000, upwards to $10,000, depending on how much power you want to run through those. Because it's all going to be about the panels, the size of the panels, and how many panels, and also the size of the batteries and how many batteries. That's really going to determine how much power you have. So I've been quoted anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000. $10,000 was a complete off-the-grid solution. $2,000 was you want to power a couple of devices and a refrigerator, that you can spend $2,000. So just keep that in mind. So Andy G says the solution is to build power plants, right? Which is what we were saying. And then Elijah Wade says, remember the issue with electricity is primarily focused on the capital. The provinces are not suffering as much. There are even villages in the provinces that benefit from 24-hour solar light. Yeah, so some people do have access to solar. I was in Bow. The house that I was staying in had better power than what we had in Freetown. Yes. Anything else? Anyone else? I see a number of new people are joining now on YouTube and on Facebook and a few other places.
Andrews also said Rwanda is doing good on electricity.
Sure they are. We had a whole live about Rwanda and the DRC last Monday that upset some people. If you guys want to watch that, you can check that out on the channel too. But yeah, I mean, look, certain countries are doing well and others aren't. It really just comes down to infrastructure and finances around it and ability to work on those things. Any other comments from anyone else?
Andrews just said, with all the solar knowledge, why don't local homes move to solar light? And another person said Sierra Leone's got more resources to afford our own power and or provide solar power instead of whatever they are doing. That's
Okay.
it.
Well, the reason why more houses don't have solar is because solar is very expensive. It's very expensive. I think, the people. So the thing is that in the long run, you'll probably spend less money on solar if you have a solar setup. The problem is the upfront cost in many cases is just too high and it's cost prohibitive. Now, Easy Solar, a company here in Sierra Leone that they don't actually create or own any solar equipment, they buy and then they sell it here. They're basically a distributor of solar equipment. They do have a payment plan over like a 48-month, 24-month span where you can basically pay for solar over an extended period of time. But again, it's not cost effective for most people. I mean, some people could just do a little solar, something that can give you some lights. What you'll find is that yesterday I was negotiating the cost of putting up beacons around the property that we bought in January of last year, the 5 acres. And when we met with the folks who are working on that, am I back?
Yeah, you're here. You're just going in and out.
Okay. So I was saying that we're negotiating it, and negotiating the cost of the beacons that are going to go on the land. And when I went to this guy's house, he had like 9 different solar flashlights, solar radio, solar charging station, like these things you can get on Amazon or whatever for like, $10 or whatever. He had like 9 of them lined up, all charging. And that's what he does every day, is he charges these devices all day long. And then at night he uses them for light because he just doesn't have access to power. They didn't have an EDSA meter at the house. They don't even pay for EDSA because he just didn't have the ability to afford it. So, for many people, true solar is cost prohibitive. I think if the country can work on figuring out how to do it, but again, if you're gonna power an entire city or an entire country with solar power, what you're really doing is you're just buying giant, massive batteries, and many of them. Because if those of you who may not be aware of this, but solar power is not just a panel that saves energy and then distributes it to the house. What a solar panel does is it just charges a battery, and that battery is the power that you live off of, right? So I want to make sure that that's clear, right? So, because I was not aware of this until about 3 years ago. I thought you buy those solar panels, and the solar panels collect the energy in the sunlight and they distribute it to the house. That's not how it works. You have a solar panel that goes up on the roof, right? Let's say, you have this solar panel up on the roof, and then you have this battery sitting in somewhere in the house that panel is charging that battery. And then at night or when the power goes out, that battery kicks in, and that battery is what you're running off of. You're not actually running on solar. All solar is doing at this point in time is charging a battery. So you're really not running on solar. You're running on battery power, which is what most people don't know. So if you want to power the whole country, you got to have a lot of batteries, a lot of big batteries. That's what's going to power the country.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Are there any other comments that we're missing or that I missed?
Somebody said HLM said also the cost of maintaining the equipment.
Yeah, cost of maintaining the equipment now. Okay. Well, I mean, I think we've spent enough time on this topic for today. The next topic we do is not going to be like a topical one that's in the news. We're going to talk about something a little bit more controversial, and we'll get to that when we get to it. You guys will see that later. But in the meantime, if you guys are interested in any of our services, you know where to find us. You can go to the Sierra Leoneans Killing It page, go to Maya's Instagram page. She is at Maya, right? If I remember off the top of my head. Okay. I'm at Joe Hatagwa or at Authentic African. And you can find our services, what we offer and we provide. Obviously, Admire had mentioned she is a licensed braider. She specializes in painless braiding, right? And hair growth, right? If I remember that, I'm good. And for me, I specialize in consulting people on how to move to the continent of Africa, whether you want to move to Ghana or Sierra Leone, you want to visit, you want to travel to the continent, you want to buy real estate, you can work with me and I can help you do that. I can also help you grow your social media platform and consult you on that as well. And so with that, okay, one more question, sorry, and then I'll answer it. Elijah Wade says, what part of Bo is your 5 acres located? Not the exact place, but the area. Around Bo Kenema border, around that border area. Somewhere in that region is what I'll say. Good question. All right. So with that, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share this with other Sierra Leoneans who want to know what's going on here and why it's happening. Any final words from you, Admire?
That's all for me. Well, thank you guys again for your engagement. Thank you for talking to us. Thank you for the questions. Please be sure to tune in next week. We go live every week, by the way. Follow our pages, support, and share our lives. And if any of you are just now tuning in to this live discussion, you can catch up on YouTube. So yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We appreciate you.
Yes, thanks, guys. We'll see you all next Monday.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.